Hello everyone! I was gonna show you this game yesterday right after it was played, but my toothache got so severe I had to go to the ER, and I did get a very nice painkiller there, but it really did nothing to help me, so I really didn't know what to do, and I had to go all the way to Zagreb to find a dentist who was willing to open up his workshop and fix me up. So by the time I was done with it, it was like 2 a.m. when I got back home to my city. Well, needless to say, it was a very eventful day, but now it's better, manageable. My right side is a bit swollen up, but that is not a reason not to show a nice Gruenfeld game between Sergey Karjakin and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave from round 4 of the 2018 Norway Championship. Now, as I mentioned in my previous video, Nd4 broke his hip. Well, I don't know if it's like a broken hip or it was just a mini fracture. He did have an operation, and his game against Fabiano Caruana was postponed. So only 4 games were played in round 4, but they were 4 very eventful games. So before we check out this very nice game between Karjakin and Lagrave, we do have some photos. First, some photos from the cooking contest, as during the rest day the players did have a cooking contest. So here we have. It's not of the highest quality, but you can see Aaron on there slicing up that garlic. Magnus Carlsen on the left is approaching him. You remember last year the players were milking cows and driving tractors. Here a very nice photo of Levan Aranyan and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. They were teammates during this cooking contest. All the players worked in teams. Here we have Nd4 and Vishwanathan Anand. Ding and Anand were the winners of the cooking contest, and it's very interesting. Ding broke his hip, but he didn't really know it was broken, so he went to the cooking contest after his accident, and only then after the cooking contest he went to see a doctor, and then they told him, dude, you have to go get an operation. So everything is well now, and his game against Caruana was only postponed. Here also a very nice photo of Levan Aranyan and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave preparing vegetables, and here, enough with the cooking photos, a photo from this game. So that there's Karjakin and Maxime on the right. So let's check it out. Maxime has the black pieces, and Karjakin opens with d4. Knight to f6, c4, g6, knight to c3, and d5, as we've already mentioned, it's the Gruenfeld defense. C captures, knight captures, and e4. So the exchange variation, the most standard of lines. Knight captures, b captures, and bishop to g7. Bishop to c4, and now the immediate c5. Maybe if there are some real beginners watching this video, this may not seem like a natural move, but it really is. Notice that capturing or pushing d5 is impossible because this bishop is eyeing the c3 pawn. Then you would get this very nice fork. So, just putting it out there. So knight to e2, also adding more protection to the d4 pawn and guarding the c3 pawn. Knight to c6, we have bishop to e3, castles, and b6 now. And here Karjakin plays d captures on c5. Seems like a pawn sacrifice, but queen to c7. And now you could capture another pawn here with c captures on b6, and after a captures on b6, you would be up a pawn temporarily, but it's very hard to imagine that Karjakin would be prepared for a line like this, and going into it you would only go into Maxime's preparation. So after queen to c7, knight to d4, a nice active move. Knight to e5, attacking the bishop. We have knight to b5, attacking the queen on c7. Queen moves and bishop back to e2, preparing f4 to kick away the knight from a nice central square, that is e5. B captures on c5, grabbing back the pawn. Rook to b1, and now a6. There are no good discoveries to be made with the knight, so knight to a3. The queen is now attacked. Queen back to c7, and now f4. Instead of moving the knight immediately, Maxime makes an in-between move. Rook to e8, rook to d8, first attacking the queen. Queen to c2, and now knight to g4. Bishop captures, and f5 now. Karjakin is ready to bust open Maxime's king side. G captures on f5, we have a knight to c4, first an in-between move, and now of course grabbing a pawn isn't possible, because if you capture it and queen captures, then your bishop is attacked, and also rook to b7 would be an extremely active move for white, going for e7. So that this would be allowing too much activity for white for the price of one pawn. So after knight c4, e6, we have h3 now, bishop h5, and now capturing on f5. E captures on f5 and bishop to g5, now attacking Maxime's rook. And here Maxime ignores this threat. He plays f4, preparing a very wild move, that is pawn to f3. And now Karjakin doesn't grab the exchange. If this bishop on g5 is a very nice piece. The rook on a8 is completely out of the game. So, at the moment it's doing nothing. So while you could grab the exchange immediately, and this is in fact the best move recommended by the engine, Karjakin decides not to do this, as it would just activate black's other rook. So first, queen to f2. Now, with ideas of capturing the f4 pawn, and after the bishop moves, there will be some nice threats against the f7 pawn. So here it comes. Instead of playing something like rook to e8, now getting the rook out of the way, that could be followed with the bishop captures on f4, queen c6, and knight to d6. This is so much activity for white. Rook e2 attacking the queen, queen to g3. Now there are so many threats white has, and white's position is simply very nice. Rook to b7, also an idea. Black also has some threats, towards the g2 pawn, but white is holding this very nicely. So instead of moving the rook, Maxime proceeds with his plan. He plays pawn to f3. So what do you do here? Here, Karjakin decided to grab the rook on d8. So bishop captures on d8. Rook captures on d8, and now instead of capturing on f3, if you capture g captures on f3, again you're giving black too much activity. After queen to f4, rook to d1, attacking the rook. Rook captures, and now bishop captures on c3. Black would be completely fine here, even better. Of course, you can never capture the knight on c4. If you capture it, then rook to d8 will win the game immediately. After bishop blocks, only move, queen to g3 check. Now, if you move the king, rook captures f8 will be checkmate. So after you block this, then queen to d6 comes, and there is no defense against queen captures on f8. So after this rook captures on d8, we have queen to h4 now, attacking the bishop on h5. First, f captures on g2, attacking Karjakin's rook on f1. We have rook f to e1, and now comes bishop to f3. Bishop to f3 is a very important move, not just because it protects the g2 pawn, but to really see how strong this move is, first you have to realize why is bishop to g6 a losing move for black. So this is a very nice position for you to analyze. Feel free to pause the video here and find the winning move for Karjakin in this position. I will give it a couple of seconds as usual, so feel free, go wild. For those of you who found it, congratulations, you are an excellent rook lifter. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, the move you have to make here is this very nice rook lift, rook to b7. And once you see it, it really becomes apparent. Of course, you're forcing black to capture the rook, and then queen will capture on d8. And if you do this obvious threat, queen captures, then black's only move is bishop to f8, and now not rook e8, which everyone would immediately play, because then black will have some counterplay after queen to b1, but instead knight to b6. And now the threat, of course, is knight to d7. The idea is the same. Queen will capture on f8, and the black can do very little about this. If black stops this with bishop to f5, for example, then comes rook e8, but then knight is blocking the queen from coming to b1. So a very nice idea. So if black tries to unpin, then comes knight d7, and still the threat is queen captures. If you move the bishop, there's really no good square for the bishop. Queen f8 check, king moves, black loses a piece, and ended the game. Now white is a whole rook up. And on the other hand, after rook b7, even if you don't capture the rook, even if you go queen c8, for example, simply guarding the rook, that's even worse, because now knight b6, you are forcing queen to capture the rook, and when queen captures, you already have a knight here. So simply queen captures, bishop to f8, and now knight d7, and the king is now on g8 instead of on g7, so there is no defense. Queen captures on f8, wins the game. So a very nice idea. Bishop to f3 not only guards this, but also prevents rook to b7. Very nice idea by Maxime. We have rook to e3 attacking the bishop, and now bishop to c6. Again, Maxime has to keep an eye on that b7 square. We have rook b to e1, doubling up. Rook to e7 was a nice idea, but that can always be played. Better yet, now Karjakin first doubles up on the e file. Rook to f8, and now knight to e5. Either forcing Maxime to give up that strong dark square bishop for the knight, or, you know, it's a very nice square for the knight. Bishop to d5 doesn't allow the knight to be captured, and now rook to g3, now attacking the bishop. We have f6 attacking the knight, knight to d3, and now bishop captures on a2. And this is the point of no return for Maxime. The best move here would be king to h8, simply moving out of the pin, and now black will have some chances, although not a lot of chances. But after this, bishop captures on a2. Here, Karjakin shows the Frenchman that this definitely was not a free pawn. Here, Karjakin plays c4, and for the price of one pawn, this bishop is now out of the game. c4 blocks this bishop out of the game. The queen is protecting c4. We have queen to d6. Maxime tries to get the queen into the game via some queen to d4 ideas, maybe exchanging queens, but now comes knight to f4. Karjakin doesn't allow to exchange queens because he's on the attack and he wants all of the pieces on the board. Here, capturing with the bishop doesn't give you anything, because knight h5 simply this threat is unstoppable. If you try rook f7 to prevent it, then rook e8 is coming, and after rook to f8, now comes knight captures on f6. Bishop cannot capture because it's pinned. Rook cannot capture because it's pinned from this rook. So if you capture with the queen, then queen captures, wins the queen. If you go king to h8, then queen captures on h7 is checkmate. But even after king f7, you're still getting checkmated. Queen h5, king captures, rook checks on f3, and the king has nowhere to go. Queen has to block, and the rook captures on f4 will be checkmate. So after knight to f4, queen to d4 check was played, king moves, and now bishop captures on c4. Here Karjakin played queen to h6 with the threat of queen captures on g7. We have f5, now the queen is also protecting the bishop on g7, but knight to h5, and on move 38, even before the time control was reached, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave resigns the game. Why did he resign? Well, there's really nothing to do here. The bishop on g7 is attacked 3 times. There is really no good way to defend it. Any tricks with pawn to g1 queen don't work. And if you try rook f7, then again, the same idea applies. Rook e8 check. Rook has to block. You can't move any other pieces. And then simply comes rook captures on g7, king moves, and queen captures on h7 will be checkmate. So yeah, after knight to h5, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and a very nice victory for Sergey Karjakin, who after 3 draws wins his first game in the Norway Chess Championship. We will show one more game from round 4, and then we're gonna check out the standings after round 4. It's not the real standings because Dingleren still has to play his game against Caruana, but just to get a general idea. So yeah, I would like to thank Danny McCullough and Alvaro Fernandez de la Rosa for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check all my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon with another game from round 4 of the 2018 Norway Championship. Thank you all, and I'll see you soon.